Okay, let's get right into it. We're diving deep into a huge courtroom battle, and believe it or not, it all seemed to kick off because of a single social media post, a post that could directly impact the lives of more than 350,000 Haitian immigrants right here in the U.S. So how did this whole firestorm start? Well, it was a tweet. The official in charge of the Temporary Protected Status Program, just days after she announced a plan to end protections for Haitians, posted this message describing immigrants from certain countries as, and I'm quoting here, killers, leeches, and entitlement junkies. You can imagine that language really lit a match. And then things got really interesting. A federal judge stepped in, and in a pretty dramatic move, she took those exact words, killers, leeches, or entitlement junkies, and threw them right back. Her ruling basically said, no, that's not who we're talking about. And just like that, the stage was set for a major legal showdown. So who are the people actually at the center of this? Well, they're not just statistics. The 5 plaintiffs who brought this case forward, we're talking about a neuroscientist working on Alzheimer's research, a software engineer at a national bank, and a full-time registered nurse. These are folks who are deeply woven into the fabric of American communities. Okay, to really get what's at stake here, we need to take a quick step back and understand the program at the heart of all this. It's called Temporary Protected Status, or TPS for short. So what is TPS? In a nutshell, it's a kind of humanitarian safety net. Congress created it for people who are already in the U.S., but whose home countries have been hit by something awful, like a massive earthquake or a civil war. It means they can't safely be sent back, so they're allowed to legally live and work here until conditions improve. Now, for Haiti, this isn't a new thing. Their TPS journey started way back in 2010 after that catastrophic earthquake. And since then, it's just been one crisis after another. A cholera epidemic, political assassination, rampant gang warfare. So administration after administration, both Republican and Democratic, kept extending the protection because, well, the country just never got a chance to recover. And that brings us to the here and now, and the administration's decisive move to finally end this long-standing protection. So the official announcement comes down, setting a hard deadline of about 67 days. For hundreds of thousands of people who've built lives here, who've been legally working and living here for years, suddenly everything was just thrown into limbo. So how did the government defend this in court? Their main legal argument was pretty bold. They basically claimed the DHS Secretary has unbounded discretion. In plain English, that means she can make whatever call she wants, however she wants, and crucially, that the courts have no say in it. It's a massive claim about executive power. So, you can imagine what happened next. Inside that courtroom, you had 2 completely opposite views of the law going head-to-head. On one side, you have the plaintiffs. They argued the whole process was rushed, biased, and that the secretary just ignored the actual facts on the ground and failed to follow the law. On the other side, you had the government saying, hey, this isn't even your jurisdiction. This is our call, and the courts need to stay out of it. So why did the judge intervene? Well, to issue a temporary stay like this, a judge has to believe 2 things. 1, that people will suffer real, irreversible harm if she doesn't act. And 2, that the people suing have a pretty good shot at winning the case in the end. And she laid out all her reasons in this really detailed 83-page opinion that just picked apart the government's process. A key point for the judge was the government's own official assessment of Haiti. After everything we've talked about, the chaos, the violence, their official conclusion was that the conditions were simply concerning. And this is where it gets really kind of wild, because at the exact same time, one part of the government, DHS, was calling the situation concerning. Another part, the U.S. State Department, had issued its highest possible warning, a level 4 do not travel advisory. They were telling American citizens to avoid Haiti at all costs due to kidnapping, crime, and unrest. The contradiction is just staggering. So the judge looked at all of this and found a whole list of serious legal flaws. She said it was substantially likely the decision was made before they even looked at the facts. She found the secretary didn't consult with the other agencies she was legally required to, and she said the final conclusion completely ignored overwhelming evidence of what she called a perfect storm of suffering. The judge also really focused on the sheer human scale of all this. That one decision would affect 352,959 people. That's neighbors, colleagues, community members who would go from being lawful residents one day to being at risk of deportation the very next day, literally overnight. And beyond the human cost, there's a huge economic piece to this too. The court found that the government's own analysis just completely ignored the $5.2 billion in annual taxes paid by this group. So you'd effectively be turning hundreds of thousands of employed, tax-paying residents into people who could no longer legally work or contribute. So look, this judge's order is a major, major development. But, and this is the crucial part, this story is far from over. For all these individuals, the future is still deeply uncertain. Yeah, this isn't a permanent solution. The best way to think of it is like a pause button. It holds the termination, which gives TPS holders a temporary reprieve while the main legal battle continues to play out in court. So the road ahead is complicated. The government will almost certainly appeal this. A higher court could end up reversing the stay. The administration could even try to start the whole process over again, but this time, do it by the book. Or there could be a policy change, and they could just redesignate Haiti for TPS. Everything is still on the table. This whole standoff leaves us with a really fundamental and challenging question. The T in TPS stands for temporary. It was designed for short-term problems. But when a country's crisis lasts not for a year, but for more than a decade, what does temporary truly mean for the people who have built their entire lives here in the meantime?